Haringey suffers many of the housing problems of London and needs to be seen within the total context.
I lived and worked in Haringey for the majority of my life. I almost don't know any other borough, if that makes sense.
Well, 400 plus infants, 550 or so juniors, which all in all makes almost 1,000 children in an old worn-out building in urgent need of remodelling.
I have been the Member of Parliament for Tottenham in Haringey now for 15 years, but I have lived in Tottenham and Haringey all of my life, so I've been here for 43 years.
Well, a lot of the things which I see continue to be an issue, and I think they have been for quite a long time.
I'm not going to lie, we are kind of blessed here because there are like a lot of arts things going around. Like we had the chocolate factory at the back there, which is like a complex building of studios, art studios. There's a dance studio in there, music studios. There's people making clothes in there as well, it's really cool. We also have like a lot of different types of shops. We have a market and there's lots of frequent buses and we have a train station. Obviously rents are rising ridiculously everywhere in London. And Haringey. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of places where they're knocking things down and building luxury flats.
Haringey suffers many of the housing problems of London and needs to be seen within the total context. It lies between the outer boroughs with mainly owner-occupied, fairly expensive housing, and the overcrowded inner boroughs. In inner London, the supply of cheaper accommodation is reducing.
I'm lucky that I'm living at home right now. Obviously, I still need to contribute. You know, it's not free. It's difficult for my parents. They don't have massive jobs. They're doing their best. They've done their best since I was born. You know, but I am lucky right now because I know people that have come to London, they don't have any family, and they're struggling to live. They're struggling to live.
Well, it was a very depressing situation, you know, very desperate. You just don't know what you're going to do at all. Once he started harassing me, he had a court order against me, and I was due to appear at court, but I just couldn't take it. I couldn't wait for the court appearance. So I packed up and went to the council's homeless families department. They put me in a hotel bed and breakfast with a 2-month-old child. We was there 10 weeks, and from there we went to secondary welfare accommodation, which was, you know, diabolical. My baby was in and out of hospital every couple of weeks with chest infections. And in the end, I caused such a fuss that I was rehoused here.
My name is Clasford Sterling, MBE. Been working on Broadwater Farm Estate, Haringey, for many years now. Since 1979. Always lived in Tottenham for most of my life. It opened my eyes to things that I normally take for granted. You don't really get involved in politics or anything like that. There is an area of politics where you live and you kind of live your life around those local politics. But then when I got involved in community work, I personally realised that there's so many other people that make decisions that governs your life. And we weren't part of that. Battle with the police. And if you were lucky to be working or this, that and the other, you had some kind of a decent life. But if you weren't, you more often than not ended up with a very troubled life. Racism wasn't very prevalent over on this estate. It was in the borough, and it was massively with the local police. I didn't realise how trying to educate could lead to violence. But one thing was apparent with Broadwater Farm Estate is that we had to change. We wanted a better life. We were the most notorious estate in Europe. As I got involved more in meetings, I quickly realized that. From a young person's eyes, I didn't see it like that. But everybody else did. We had 1,063 units over here. And out of those 1,063 units, 90% was unemployed. We were the highest rent arrears in the country. So that's how it was.
Growing up in Haringey, there was always like a sense of community. I mean, I grew up around Tower Gardens area, just opposite Broadwater Farm. I mean, I remember in Wood Green, I think it was a couple of years ago, there was a whole row of shops that were knocked down, and there were a whole row of like local small businesses that were knocked down. More housing, well, unaffordable housing that is being built, and I really think they're trying to make the area more commercially appealing. But then at the same time, as a knock-on effect, because those people that have small businesses or those people who, are already having trouble paying rent, when the property value of the area is starting to go up, it's going to make it harder for the people that live there.
So if you were to work at a job for 16 hours a week on minimum wage, how much would you make?
16, you'd be making just over £100 a week.
Is that something that you could be able to live off of?
If you're paying for your rent and things, all those kind of things like that, no, you can't live off that, because even if you're on 20 hours a week, you're not going to get benefits, but then what you're earning from that is not going to sustain you if you're on minimum wage.
My name is Simon Stewart, and I'm the proud owner and manager of this beautiful shop here, Simon Stewart Clothing, located at 89 West Green Road, Tottenham. I want to say Haringey per se, but it's very difficult to for anybody to set up a business. They have to have some dedication, and you need funding, and going to the bank to get funding or going to one of those institutions to get funding is a lot difficult.
How long did it take you to set up your business?
Well, it took me roughly about 8 years or more, because I have to save. I have to save a lot. And for me, going to the bank to get a loan, so that wasn't I know I wouldn't get it, so I just have to work, save a little here, save a little there, so till I can accumulate the amount of money where I need to go forward. It helped create a more self-reliance, more than all the big businesses, them taking over the place. For example, you see Tesco coming in the area, but we need more small business, more little private enterprise, because I don't think they have faith in the young one them to, if they come in and say they want to do this or they want to do that. I think they should have more faith in them to give them a chance. Most of the young people, they just idle around the place and they don't have anything to do. And some apprenticeship scheme. I would like to see like somebody like me doing this business. I would like to have some young people coming in who want to learn the skill, because from being here 7 years, not one young person never come to me and said they want interested to do what I'm doing here. And this job I'm doing, tailoring, is a dying trade.
No one really came here, it was only us. We didn't get no post. We had to go up the road to get our post. We didn't have a milkman. We couldn't get anything on credit. And because it was our normal life, to other people it was abnormal. But for us, it was just normal life.
I have been the Member of Parliament for Tottenham in Haringey now for 15 years, but I have lived in Tottenham and Haringey all of my life, so I've been here for 43 years. I think that Tottenham certainly was always a working class area. When I was growing up here, it was a community of West Indians, Cypriots. I think now in 2015, it is a community that is the most diverse in Europe. And it's certainly the case that if you live on the west of the borough in Muswell Hill or Crouch End, your life chances, your life prospects are higher than if you live in the east of the borough. So I would say broadly, people do get on, they do live side by side, but of course, sometimes people live parallel lives, sometimes there are tensions between different communities, but on the whole, I think we do pretty well here in the London Borough of Haringey. It's really important to do our best to make sure that families aren't under pressure, that there are quality youth services, that for grandparents there's a daycare centre if you're elderly, that there is the right provision and support for people who are unemployed. All of these things help actually not to put strains on families. And the truth is, at this time, some of the provision that was in the past in the 1970s is not there in the same way, despite the fact that the constituency has had 2 riots in a generation. We are a community and a strong community that pulls together.
Haringey is a populous borough with many different needs and requirements, at work and at play, as groups and as individuals.
This estate here would never have changed if we didn't have that ideology and that way of thinking as one family. We wouldn't be here sitting here today.
You know, the great thing about Haringey is on every single street, in every single estate, there are people from all corners of the world.
Well, a lot of the things which I see continue to be an issue, and I think they have been for quite a long time. So number one is the housing affordability. Lots of people, regardless of age or background or income, are all saying London is far too expensive, including Wood Green, Hornsey, all parts of North London. Just you cannot afford to get onto the housing ladder. There's not enough affordable properties, and also there's not enough properties to rent in the private sector which people can afford on the income that they're on. Well, London's population is growing quickly, but at the same time our decision makers are not providing the incentives which are needed to provide more new homes. The positive is all the wonderful arts and media work that's going on. Our Haringey Music Service is providing free music lessons to children in our primary schools, and that's a wonderful thing to see.
Well, 400 plus infants, 550 or so juniors, which all in all makes almost 1,000 children in an old worn-out building in urgent need of remodelling. We have a very restricted site. I believe it's just under an acre, when for the number of children in the school we should have something about 5 acres, which of course we know is impossible in an urban area such as this.
Everyone's a big family in Noel Park Primary. My favourite thing about Noel Park Primary School is like when we ride. We get to do really fun trips, like go to the cinema and go to museums.
Teachers will always go through the extra effort to help you. They'll keep you for after-school boosters, and you read a lot, and which really helps you in your writing.
I think the teachers are good because they help you, and when you're stuck, they stay with you to make you get better and understand it.
Teachers push you a really long way.
I lived and worked in Haringey for the majority of my life. I almost don't know any other borough, if that makes sense. And in terms of uniqueness, you know, the diversity and the richness in culture, that's London now, isn't it? Because when I first started, we taught in a certain way, and we're almost going back to that. What worked back 10, 15 years ago, what works now, but especially in early years, which is where my area of expertise. We've always been very child-led, learning through play, and I'm pleased to say that still continues.